Hello, everyone. I'm Kenneth Porio, your instructor for STS, Science, Technology, and Society. Hello, and welcome to our students of JIB International Schools. I hope you're uh, taking your time watching this video, and hopefully you could stay at the end of this video and be able to interact and be able to engage in our activity by the end of this video, because these are exciting and we're still warming up on how we view science and how we can flourish as human beings in terms of science and technology. And by that, we also discuss how we can take advantage of the scientific method, which we have already discussed by last week. So yeah, and also by the way, your final, your summative assessment rather of your uh, first period or prelim period for this course. No, I'll be checking on that later on, and hopefully I can release the grade within this week. So just wait for announcements for those who are students under my under my subject. Okay, so yes, we are still on the discussion of the scientific method. No, and last week we have tackled the first three steps of the scientific method. And right now, we want you to all discuss on how do we discuss science and technology as a society, as how we explore science and how can we take advantage of our observations of the natural world. So allow me to share today's slides. So don't forget to sign up your name on the chat box so I can check your attendance. Please put your name on the chat box or on the comment section if you're not watching us live. So, but again, I encourage you to watch me discuss all these live on YouTube. If you have not yet subscribed to this YouTube channel, please um, hit that subscribe button and bell icon, please, para at least if you're part of my classes and if you want to see all my videos, aside from my other personal videos, if you are interested, don't forget to click that button too, that bell icon, for you to be updated whenever I upload a new video. Okay, so this time we're still on that discussion on the human person flourishing in terms of science and technology. I'll just run through the first three steps of the scientific method, and then we'll get through the last three steps of the scientific method and discuss your uh, somewhat little mini activity, if you a discussion activity, if you want to answer here. No, so please stay until the end of the video para maka-interact tayo. Okay, so we've discussed our second module with our objectives to identify different conceptions of human flourishing, map the development of scientific method and the validity of science, and justify human flourishing vis-a-vis progress of science and technology to be able to define for themselves the meaning of the good life. Actually, I will be discussing the good life by then, no, by the next module will be discussing that the good life. What is the good life? And we will discuss that in the next module next week. Okay. All right. So by then we'll elaborate more on the scientific method. Again, we have discussed the first three steps last week. And just before we had our prelim exam, we already discussed now the scientific method. All right. So let me adjust my webcam here. Yan. Para straight tayo. No? Okay, so the scientific method. Okay. Now, again, we already tackled what's the scientific method. We already discussed that. What the steps to take whenever you want to analyze something, a natural phenomenon, and you one way to solve a problem, basically. So it's the scientific method. Okay, so we have already like discussed the first three steps already. I'll just run through. Again, I discussed last week that the scientific method might differ depending on which reference book you depend on. No, so depends on the authors on what they think is the scientific method. No, so first is the Anderson Hepburn scientific definition of scientific method, and there are 6 steps: identifying the problem, gathering and studying information, formulate hypothesis, test the hypothesis, make a conclusion, and then verify the conclusion. That's their version of the scientific method. Meanwhile, Gotch, and Gotch, no, their scientific method and practice paper, no, they propose these steps of the scientific method: observation, hypothesis, test the hypothesis, collect the data, draw conclusions, and communicate the results. That's their take on the scientific method. Another another author will propose the scientific method as a process, as an ongoing process. It's never gonna stop. No, so it's a cycle, as you can see. No, so again, uh, the the different steps may vary, but it usually concludes to a particular solution to a problem. That's it. No, so you think of it as like uh, problem solving involving science, solving problems in a scientific way. Parang ganun lang. No, so that's how we discuss the scientific method, right? I know you have known this since like junior high school, if your teacher has taught that, no. But basically, your teacher maybe in junior high might not really discuss or elaborate much of the scientific method. But as you go along, remember, as you go along and you realize when you went through senior high and all these practical research 1 and 2, then you got inquiries, investigations, and immersion, all of these research subjects, 1 to 3 research subject pa jud sa inyohang senior high school, you're able to like, okay, you got a gist or the cinch in taking research through the scientific way, no, scientific method, diba? I hope you got that point whenever you did your research, no. Hopefully, I was able to make you aware of that, right? So ganon. So again, it's all about thinking yourself like a scientist. Okay, I know this might like uh, scare you. You're college students. Come on. No, you're college students. You're already taking research. You're about to venture into like deeper understanding of your program. Tama ba? Of your field of study, which is tourism, hospitality, or culinary. Come on. No, it's just like that. You take time to think logically whenever you investigate a question or a problem. You break things down into these steps to make it easy for you to understand what's the problem, what can I do to solve the problem, and what's your conclusion when you try to solve the problem. What came out, no? So that's the thing, no? That's how we discuss a scientist. Again, we'll run through the first 3 steps, observations. No, everything starts with a question, whether you like it or yes. Ganon yan. Scientific method. The problems will always start with a question. No, I don't want to elaborate. It's so basic that you just have to like, you know, find your observations. Use your senses or raise a question about something. It might not be relating to science. It can be like your behaviors. It's a science, behavioral science. It's about maybe your relationships, boyfriend, girlfriend. It can You can use the scientific method to solve your relationship problems. I tickled your brain there. No, diba? Or something, some maybe financial or your money. Why is it I'm out of budget when I'm trying to buy something that is so important or so essential to me? What's your observation on that? Just raise a question and then do your research. Step 1. Step number 1. Okay, so next, you form your hypothesis, your educated guess, you research and form your review of related literature, your RRL. That's actually forming your hypothesis. Then you make your educated guess about what's gonna be the outcome, or what's gonna be a conclusion that I think this happened because this happened, because that happened because this happened, or whatever. No, I think this is true because this one. No, ganon. You do your hypothesis. No, logical statements could really help for you. No, so again here, you need to give your reason why your hypothesis is correct, and I gotta emphasize on that point, because you have to understand this is all about how you engage or form your data gathering or your experimentation or whatever form of data gathering or data analysis you'll be doing. That's it. No, that's how you form your hypothesis. So again, based on your observation, it tries to explain your answer to the question. Okay, sometimes it's more or less an if then statement, a conditional statement. No, as we we computer scientists will say to it. No, it's a conditional statement. If this function or this condition, then this would happen. This set of commands will happen, diba? Computer geeks there, or coding geeks there, if you if you understand me, that's what we do, diba? So ganon lang. When we form a hypothesis, you find ways to explain the answer to this question. Tama ba? So, tandaan nyo yan ha. Okay. Again, you must be able to say that this hypothesis that I'm showing can be tested. Tama ba? So, hope you got it. When designing an experiment, no, that's step 3, testing your hypothesis, you must take the step to be able to create a way to find out if this hypothesis is true. Okay? Parang ganun lang yan, no? It's more about the you find that particular thing, no? You find that particular way to prove your educated guess. And this is where if you find your like your theories or whatever is test testable using using an experimental form of experiment form of research, you use a controlled experiment, no? So there are variables you have to consider. You also have to factor in also the the conditions that you have to undertake, no, to prove your hypothesis if it's true. Well, so there, a variable is always that factor that changes in a controlled environment, and it serves as that factor. No, so scientists will try to experiment whether it can show an particular outcome. If it cannot be observed, it cannot be tested. Plain and simple. No, so you can really see that you can actually also use a model to further explain your theory about, say, for example, can you say that comets or some falling star killed the dinosaurs? You can use these particular ways to say that this happened. No, that's true. No, okay. In testing your hypotheses, again, the only thing you will change on that point is what we call a variable. No, you you only change that, no, to when you think that it will create that outcome you want. Parang ganun ba? No. So again, there are two variables that you should consider: the independent variable, the variable being changed here, and the dependent variable. That these things will respond to your change of variables. No. So again, for example, you're growing plants with different amounts of fertilizer. No. So the independent variable is your amount of fertilizer. That variable that's being changed in the experiment. And the growth of your plant serves as your dependent variable, in which, say for example, you just want to measure the height of the plants. That's your dependent variable. Or the state of the leaves. What's the color? Dependent variable. Or the health of the soil, or the number of nutrients in the soil. That's a dependent variable. Okay, so again, these are the things you have to understand, especially when you conduct research. No, I know you have experienced that in senior high. Maybe you did not fully understood it, but I'm now dictating this to you just because. I do hope you're paying attention there. No, if you are paying attention, um, uh, type in the chat box. I understand. Period. I understand. Period. Please, if you're watching us live, I hope you're watching us live. Please comment in the chat box. I understand if you understand now the differences between the independent and the dependent variables. Okay? I hope you agree with me. Again, this is how we construct a controlled experiment. So in a control group, or sometimes called the placebo, no, placebo group. This is where the variable is not changed. And then in an experimental group, you change the variable, the independent variable. Okay, I hope you understood that point. Okay, all about the variables. Okay, so there's also a thing called a fair test, no? Because remember, um, research can lead to bias, no? And it can like destroy your whole research if you impose a bias into your research. And this is where a fair test comes in. You keep everything the same except the variables. The one thing you should change. Okay. So again, keep that in mind. No? Mahirap na kung yung ginagawa mong test in an experiment, parang change mo lahat. Nako, napaka-delikado niyan. Okay? So I told you to interact with us, no? So comment in the chat box or in the comment section below. This is your first discussion question. How do you properly test the hypothesis that you have predicted? I know some of you have already answered in the last synchronous discussion, but then again, let's dig it deeper, or just I want your opinions in the comment section. How do you properly test the hypothesis? Maybe you say, change the variables. Or what do you do? What should be done? Okay, I need your attention, and please comment in the comment section below. Again, we are reiterating this. You have to test your hypothesis. Okay, so let's move on. Oh, what will you do now after you did your experiment? You tested your hypothesis. Now is the time to gather your data. The key to experimenting is observe what happened. You write it down, you record it, document it, whatever I would say to you now, you have to record it. You have to write it down. Okay? So it's important to gather information like you do with your qualitative and quantitative experiments way back in high school. You are gathering data. You are finding the opinions of people if it's qualitative research, or you are trying to measure that. You are measuring these factors. These are what you are recording. Gathering data is very important. Write it down, take notes so it's readable and it should make sense. Tama ba? So that's the key of doing your research. And this is where step 4 comes in. Collection, organizing, and analyzing data. So what are these data you collect from your experiments? Data is defined as recorded observations or measurements. Or shall we, what we say in computer science, it's unprocessed information. It's unprocessed things, no? What you have observed, that's your data. It's raw. It hasn't been like put into treatment using like statistical analysis. Yun na yung kinuha mo, that is your data. In qualitative research, that's your descriptions. And in quantitative research, it's numerical data. Remember back in senior high school? That's what you take from your respondents or what you take from your experiments if it's a quantitative, if it's an experimental type of research. And it's based on observations. And again, you use your senses, sight, smell, temperature change, and etc. Okay, so it's organized in tables, and that in that way, you'll be easy for you to analyze that said data. So what are the results of your experiment? So after that experiment, you need to write in detail what happened in your experiment. Say, for example, what happened? The materials that made out of metal made the boat light up brightly. However, the materials that were made out of metal did not make the bulb light at all. Sounds familiar? So again, the results of your experiment has to be put into detail. And this is where you will have to draw your conclusions. After you processed your data, after you did your statistical treatments, you've done with your, say, thematic analysis, if it's qualitative, what conclusions will you undertake? So scientists decide whether the results of the experiment support the hypothesis or otherwise reject the hypothesis. When the hypothesis is not supported by the test, the scientists must find another explanation from what they have observed. And I'm breaking your brains here. I'm gonna blow up your mind. No experiment is a failure. Kung gumawa kayo ng experimental type of research, wag niyo sabihin ko yung ginawa nyo, you've done everything, you made the correct ways to gather your data or do the experiment, testing your hypothesis. If there is an outcome that doesn't favor you, don't say it is a failure. These are observations of real events, guys. And it's just a matter of changing your mindset na ay bumagsak ako dahil ganito ganyan, hindi ganito yung nangyari. Come on, guys. If you think if you have realized back in junior high siguro, if you had an experiment that hindi favorable sa iyo, maybe there was a mistake in your part. Maybe you did some wrong ways to do things. And that's okay. That's your that is an observation that you can take. Okay? I may say teachers, watching this video, baka, wait lang, sir, my failure, sir, you don't understand, sir, what we say failure. Blah 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 blah. Throw it out of the water, guys. Alam nyo ba, when I was in junior high or high school, um, I had this experiment I did for my science project, and then um, I said when something went wrong or whatever, I don't know, I did the right thing, but something went wrong, quote unquote. And then I thought, mali talaga yun eh. Mali yung ginawa ko, mali yung ganyan. During that time, I accepted it as a failure. But then I realized that that experiment I did with some form of plants or chemicals or something, I don't remember fully, but that particular science experiment that I did, that science investigatory SIP, science investigatory project, in that school, in my alma mater before in high school, all our those research activities, it's individual, guys. Hindi biro mag SIP na ikaw lang ang gagawa. And it came to a point that mali talaga yung ginawa ko. But I found out that it's actually like an observation. It's actually, ito pala yun. When I did this, it's not the outcome I wanted to be. Just because I did something with the variables. And that's okay. Experiments are just observations of real events, natural events. If it went out wrong, go record it and say that we did everything we can, we did all I can to test my hypothesis, and this came out. Maybe if your panelists are very lenient, that's a good thing. But if not, challenge yourself. Challenge the opinions of your panel if you're doing a research. Ito talaga yung outcome na, pero ganito yung nangyari. And I know this can be helpful in further research. Okay? Off ko muna yung share screen. I just want you to know, no experiment is a failure. Okay? Huwag niyong isipin na, don't ever think, huwag niyong isipin na mali yung ginawa ko. Don't ever think that you did wrong. Okay? It's always the consequence of your actions. And if it's really helpful for further research, go. Diba? Wala namang mali sa ganun. Okay? Whenever you do your research, your experiments, and all of that. Okay? Let it be. Okay? I'm trying to console you and make some sound effects there. How do I draw a conclusion? Okay. Your hypothesis doesn't have to be correct. Pwede yan siya. It doesn't, if, as long as it's educated guess and it doesn't have to be correct, cool. Well, you need just to look back at your hypothesis and see kung tama yung guesses mo, yung hypothesis mo. Okay? For example, ito ba yung na-predict mo na mangyayari? Oh, okay, I thought that these plastics or conductors of electricity. No, it's actually metals. And what kind of metals, you say? Okay. Excuse me. And when you draw a conclusion, doon mo makikita yung mangyayari na pwede mong ma-reject yung hypothesis mo, ma-support yung hypothesis mo. I don't know. Everything can be proven or disproven depending on how you manage to test your hypothesis. Okay? Ano lang kasimple, guys. Okay. just to ano lang, just to give you a point, no. You should you should be very firm in your explanation on how you say that your hypothesis is right or wrong. You just explain in a proper way, in a manner possible that will support the opinions of your panel, and say and will bring some more bring some more discussion or interest in the from the panel, no. I hope you are doing that right, no. So ganoon, no, all of these can support or reject the hypothesis. For example, all materials that were metal made the bulbs light. All of the materials that were metal did not, except for the pencil lead. So ganon, no? It's all about how you understand the situation and how did you construct your hypothesis on that way. Tama ba? And then this is where you communicate the results. No? You explain your conclusions. No? And this is where you will construct your abstract. Diba? Research, research, research. Those results that you have gathered must be communicated in the form of a written paper or presentation or both. Tama ba? So you have to communicate. It helps other scientists and or maybe people like you perform the same experiments to see if that the results of your experiment are the same as theirs. No? Dapat sa, sa pagsulat mo pa lang sa conclusions or summary and conclusions mo, the results and discussion, malalaman ng mga future scientists, not necessarily scientists na pure science, no? But then yung people like you, tourism and hospitality students or culinary students, hanggang hindi mo na-reach yung conclusions mo, hindi mo yan ma-communicate properly, dapat document talaga, no? Dapat makita ng mga kasamahan mo na pwede nilang gawin yung ginawa mo. Okay? And ganito yung mangyayari. Okay? I hope you're paying your attention. Ganun lang yan. Repeat lang yan, guys. Repeat. I know it may be like mentioned ad nauseam, like paulit-ulit. Pero yung mga ginagawa niyong experiments, like the Mongo experiment you did, pwede yung paulitin ko yan sa sunod na batch ng students. And I should say na I really do conclude, or I would really say to you this batch that I'm handling, magiging totoo rin yung magiging experiment nila sa Mongo. Tama ba? So once a scientist completes an experiment, they can often repeat it to see if they get the same findings. Ganun lang yan. No? Maybe later on, kung may mangyayaring genetic modification sa Mongo, ang mangyayari sa next experiment, pag ilagay ko si B sa less sunlight or walang sunlight at all, tutubo pa rin. So, ano nangyari? So, that is already a part of the verification process of the research that you have. It's actually verification. It checks things out to make sure everything is valid again and again and again until something happens. Ganun lang yan. Part of the scientific process. Scientific method. And things do change. No? And you have to get updated with that. All right? So ganun lang talaga yan sa scientific method. And make sure you share your information. and what you have known from your experiment. Scientists shared experiments and the findings with others. Remember, others can learn from your results. Say for instance, say you're a tourism student, and then you want to find out if um say for example uh if a particular city has multiple airports, does the appearance of the IATA code or the ICAO code will affect the way passengers will go to the airport? Parang ganun ba? Ganong experiment, no? Na say for example, parang ganun ba? You did your experiments, you did ito yung nangyayari kung say mali yung ICAO code or mali yung airport, ganun. You do you, no? Then you have these conclusions and you share it to your fellow tourism students or instructors. Mahalagang impormasyon yan, guys. And you have to share it and pamahagi mo yung nakita mo sa mga research na ganito. Okay? And it can help someone else's experiences to help them what they are studying or doing. Ganun lang yan, guys. Mahalaga ang research mo. Hindi yan tinatago sa likod ng cabinet ng library ng school niyo. Maaring maaring isang gabayan sa mga ibang estudyante o mga susunod pang henerasyon kung paano gawin itong ginawa mo. Tama ba? Make sure to share information and keep it into that bowl of knowledge, that pool of knowledge, shall they say. They should say no. The pool of knowledge. And whenever people will scour into that pool of knowledge, explore that pool of knowledge, and they get something out of it, that can be important to them. And it will be important to you. Okay? So let's conclude our discussion in this video with some definitions of when it comes to science, some defining words when it comes to science. There is ways called theories and laws, then pure science versus technology. So, what are theories? These are explanations for some phenomena based on observation, experimentation, or reasoning. And then, based on these many experiments being done, experiments that explain a theory must be repeatable. You may be able to predict with that through this theory that you proposed. Kaya may like theory of relativity. No? For example, kay Albert Einstein, theory of relativity. There is an absolute end daw to time. Parang ganun daw. Diba? That's a theory. As long as it's valid, it's a theory. No? Pag magiging true yan pag ginawa mo yung experiment just to test that theory. Parang ganun lang yan. And then, what is law? Meron ring law. Newton's law of motion. Ano pa yung ano? Maraming laws eh. If you read your science or math na books, textbooks, meron doon mga theories and laws. Ano yan? So what are laws? Laws are summaries of many experimental results and observations. And then they're not the same as theories because the laws tell only what happens, not why it happens. What happens when you do this? That's law. No? And it must not be broken. Parang ganun yan. Parang established na siya. Established na siya as true, itong laws. Itong theory na sinasabi dito, it can be said that theories can be true as long as it gets true all the time. through time rather. Through time, laging tama siya. Hanggang may nangyari na magkakaroon ng parang debate or arguable results. That's theory. Pag law siya, it is always true. It will always happen no matter what you do. If you try to break that law, yan na yung hindi mangyayari yung nangyayari and you will violate and things get broken. Diba? Laws yan. No? Parang ano lang, batas lang natin. Mga batas natin, kailangan nating sundan. Dahil mahalaga yan sa inyo. Diba? O ito. May differences rin itong pure science versus technology. Ano itong pure science na sinasabi dito, no? It's an attempt to learn more about the world. Itong what we call pure science, it's the way to learn more about the world. Then it's done by scientists or people with inquisitive minds, involving experimentation, observations, questioning, and research. Involves technology. Tama ba? Guys, if you have an inquisitive mind, you're actually practicing pure science. Whether you like it or yes, even if you are not into this domain of so-called hard sciences. That tourism or hospitality practice you do, if you have an inquisitive mind, you want to experiment, go. I want you to experiment. Say, in your research siguro, if you're, say, hospitality, culinary student, if you're involved into cooking or culinary practices, say, you do your research on how to, say, build an efficient kitchen. What are the best practices, say, for example, in a proper professional kitchen? Or what are the, say, you experiment on, say, for example, for culinary students or HM students, interested in culinary. Say, in the kitchen, say, for example, the issue of freezer burn in kitchens and restaurants. If you are exposed into like freezers or something and you have food that's freezer burnt, for example, if you question, does freezer burn affect the flavor of the food, for example lang, no? Parang ganun ba? No, you experiment, you have your control group. This group has food that doesn't have freezer burn. This group has the like different amounts of freezer burn, like ganon, or like the, I don't know with you. You just gotta have your an inquisitive mind, like very creative, very observant about the world you're living in. Or if you're a tourism student, you experiment on, say for example, say you are a flight attendant, you want to experiment on different ways flight attendants serve on an airplane during meal service. Say, how do different airlines approach this? Then you test the in this particular airline, you do this particular way of serving, you do this particular way of serving, and does it affect the, say, the quality of the service? I don't know with you. Ganon lang yan. It's pure science. It's pure science, guys. That's pure science you're doing. Okay? I hope you're paying attention. And what is now technology? No, we already discussed technology, but this is where we dig deeper. No, this is an applied science, an application of science that meets the needs of society, engineers, inventors, and creative people. Applied new scientific knowledge to build new things or tools. This new technology can lead to different scientific discoveries. Okay, so you should see here, for technology, say for example, the microscope, we cannot learn about cells and even bacteria through the use of the microscope. When there was no microscope, we we did not know that we are made of cells, and we did not know we have bacteria around us, or viruses, or pathogens. Diba? Technology has make things better for us. Tama ba? Guys, you better make use of your technology, not just the computers or gadgets, even the technology that has like improved the way of, say, doing your tourism activities, or your practice in the kitchen or the hotel. Tama ba? Am I making sense? If I still made sense, comment S on the chat box. Comment S on the chat box, guys. If what I'm saying is making sense of you right now. Okay? I hope you're paying attention. That's good. That's good. That's good, guys. Okay? So I hope you're warming up to what these terms mean and the scientific method we're really talking about, no? And by that, let's close this with our discussion. How does science lead to new technology? And how does technology add to our scientific understanding of the natural world? If you can answer this question, comment down below in the comment section. Okay? So ganun lang. I really want your comments, guys, kasi this will improve your points or grades in your STS subject. Okay? Para naman magandang buhay, maayos ang buhay, maaliwalas ang buhay, hayahay tang tanan. Okay? So I think I'm done with this. No, this next meeting that we'll be doing, I'll let you watch this video, and then I'll ask you to do a short reaction paper on this particular video. I'll be showing to you. In the next video, the next discussion, in the next meeting, I'll be posting something on MS Teams. You have to watch this video about the magician's twin, C.S. Lewis, and the case against scientism. We'll be catching up on that on our next meeting. Okay, so thank you so much, guys. I hope everything made sense to you today in this video. If you're watching us live, I hope everything makes sense. And yeah, I gotta tell you, it's something that you have to understand. Okay, and hoping that makes sense. And hope you like my new background. Hope you like this background of mine today. So the Mount Apple, the king of all mountains here in Davao. Okay. So thank you so much, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video, and see you next time. Bye bye. And God bless you guys. Bye bye.